It is 2 o'clock. We have a quorum. So I want to welcome everybody to the Rules and Open Government and Committee of the Whole. And can we have a roll call, please?
Arenas, Cohen,
Here.
Davis,
Here.
Perales, Jones.
Present.
Thank you.
All right. So we're going to start out with the agenda for Tuesday, June 14th. And we're going to start out on the usual pages of 4 and 5.
I'd like to note that we're recommending an 11 a.m. start time. Does that mean we should start closed session at 9 a.m.?
Okay, we'll make a note of that. There, from my discussions with staff, there is a possibility that we would be able to start at 1:30, but we will have that discussion when we're complete this process. All right, so 4 and 5, 6 and 7. 8 and 9. 10 and 11. 12 and 13. 14 and 15. 16 and 17. 18 and 19. 20 and 21. 22 and 23. 24 and 25. And on item 10.2, I am going to request that we defer that item for a week to the agenda of June 21st. There's still additional information that we haven't received from the developer that we need to have before we can finalize our recommendation. So I'm requesting a deferral for that item. And so that's 24 and 25. And that's it. And there's for the maker of the motion, there's also an ad sheet. So we're now going to go to public comments.
Blair?
Hi, Webb Beekman here. Happy Wednesday, happy June, Rules and Open Government time. It's my understanding that on this upcoming agenda, you're going to have an item on community energy issues that can be related to what happened at the Transportation Committee meeting on Monday, the items that were talked about then. There was a lot to do at that meeting on Monday at the Transportation Committee meeting about the future of carbon neutral issues and the importance of carbon neutral. And I tried to mention it yesterday that when we say carbon neutral, that often means the future of nuclear. And that wasn't mentioned very much. It was asked that Diablo Canyon will be continuing on for another year after it was supposed to close. So that was of interest. But I think we're at a time with the renewable energy questions, and I'm learning that it may have a certain need for fossil fuel use in that process.
Hey, Blair, I'll give you a few extra seconds. Which item are you referring to?
Well, I can't name it off the top of my head, but there is a community energy item on next week's agenda that I think is very much related to items that were talked about at the transportation meeting on Monday. Can I be allowed to continue?
Yes, please, go ahead.
Thank you. So with at that transportation meeting, a lot was talked about carbon neutral issues, and Carrie Romanoff, I can't quite remember her last name, the environmental chair. She mentioned that with the carbon issues that we need to have a simple focus on a few small items and not variate too much on the carbon issues. And for her to give a better explanation of what that means is because I still feel we need to really address the future of nuclear and the future of the importance of renewables and the good practices we're trying to create in limiting its connections with fossil fuels, and especially in this upcoming age of fighting Putin and using American fossil fuels. So good luck in our efforts to really have an open discussion about these different sides of the issue and what we could do about it in debate. And good.
I was gonna give him a couple extra seconds, but I'm sure he'll remind me later. Next.
Yeah, hi, Martha O'Connell. I'd like to draw your attention to item 3.3. Folks, I've got to tell you, I hope you stand up next week and do the right thing. You saw the hundreds and hundreds of mobile home residents pack the chambers on March 10th, 2020. There were so many people, we had to go into the overflow room. We went out of that meeting with great relief and happiness because we believed that that vote meant that all the parks in San Jose were going to get a mobile home designation. We didn't understand, and I have a master's in political science, I didn't know that you guys didn't vote any money. I went home thinking, my God, this burden is off my shoulders. Now I find out 2 years later, no money was allocated. We're still trying to get the parks redesignated. I urge you to support the Perales memo or the Jimenez-Foley memo. They're only off by $1, and let's get it moving. And not just do 5 parks. We've already waited 2 years. And I got to tell you, I'm giving you the straight scoop, the residents are angry. They don't trust their government. They said, hey, we thought this was a done deal. So please, on the 14th, do the right thing and accept one of the 2 memos, either the Perales memo or the Jimenez-Foley memo. Thank you.
Quincy?
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Quincy. I'm with the environmental organization Californians Against Waste, and I wanted to comment on C1. We're calling to express our support for the resolution to endorse.
We're not doing comments on item C1 yet. This is comments on the June 14th agenda.
Okay.
C1 will be the 3rd item. So we're going to talk about June 21st, then consent, and then C1.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Back to the committee.
Thank you, Tony. Before I go to my colleagues, Lee, I have to ask you the load balancing question. Has this agenda been thoroughly vetted and scrubbed to be balanced and not have us there till 12 o'clock at night?
Well, I won't commit to not having you there until 12 o'clock at night because there's other factors at play. But yes, we've scrubbed this. We're going through an analysis for this meeting, the one on the 21st and the one on the 28th of what really needs to be done before the end of the year, and are already shifting things into August. So we do believe everything on this agenda needs to move forward. But we are okay with the deferral of El Paseo if need be.
Great. Thank you, Lee. Councilmember Cohen.
Yeah, just a question. And I seem to recall that we actually heard and voted on the Downtown Business Improvement District yesterday, where that was item 3.6, heard immediately after 9.1. Maybe I remember wrong, but do we have something different on 3.8 in this agenda, or is that just we were trying to carry things over and miss that?
Yeah, so Gloria, I know that you're on, would ask you to chime in. I believe The one for, there's two actions required, is my understanding. 3.8, which shows up next week, was deferred. You took actions on something that was related, but somewhat different, correct, Gloria?
Correct. So what happened is you opened the hearing and then the votes were starting to be tallied. The second part of it is the final tally and your vote.
Right, that's
Oh,
right.
thanks. Then I'll
Thank-
move approval of the, oh, sorry, I guess we're going to talk about the starting time before we move approval of the agenda. So I guess I'll just let that conversation occur.
Yes, please. So Lee, what are your thoughts on the start time?
So you'll see on the 21st, we've recommended an 11 a.m. start time as well. I think with a possible deferral of the El Paseo item, the council could feasibly start the one on the 14th next week at 1:30. We will be there late because there's a considerable amount of more substantive items than just, volume of items. But you could start this at 1:30 and relatively get through before curfew.
Okay, well, that doesn't sound appealing. Councilmember Davis?
Okay, I agree. It doesn't sound appealing. I don't like being at council till midnight, but let's start with Nora about what the closed session agenda is likely to look like, if we need to back that up or if that's going to go long.
Thank you, Councilmember. We were aware that you might be moving this to 11, so there will be labor, and we may have one or two cases, but we think we can get it done before an 11 o'clock start. So, and that's keeping the time at, depending on labor, keeping the time at 9 or 9:30.
So you think we should start at 9 just to be safe? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, Lee, I don't know if you know how long labor may take. I don't know that there's a lot left in labor, but I know that there is labor. The two cases that we have will take a little bit of time. I suspect that we'll probably need at least 30 minutes to talk about the two of them.
Okay.
Yeah, I would suggest we start at 9 a.m. And even if we did finish early, that gives enough of you time to transition to open session at 11.
Well, that's a fair point, since many of us don't make it to council chambers now before closed session. All right, I guess I'll make the motion reluctantly to move the approval of the agenda with the deferral that Vice Mayor asked for on item, what was it, 10.3 or 10.2?
10.2.
10.2, and a start time for closed session of 9 a.m. and a start time for open session of 11 a.m. in the hopes that we all get home at a reasonable time.
And I'm sorry, I didn't, did you also include the ad sheet? I didn't.
And the ad sheet, I forgot that part.
All right.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Tony?
Arenas? Arenas? Cohen?
Aye.
Sorry about
Davis?
that, Tony. Yes.
Okay, Davis?
Yes.
Peralez?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're on to the agenda for June 21st. And as usual, we're going to start out on pages 4 and 5. Six and 7. Eight and 9. Ten and 11. 12 and 13. 14 and 15. 16 and 17. 18 and 19. 20 and 21. 22 and 23. 24 and 25. 26 and 27. Bless you. 28 and 29. All right, so let's go to public comments.
Claire?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. I think there should be an item on the agenda, on this agenda about how to label technology hardware and data collection as military. This is a new concept for us as the Bay Area, as local communities. It's been a bit difficult to learn how to do, but I think we're getting the hang of it. And it's important, good work that's developed since the time of George Floyd and Reimagine. And thank you that we're considering this. The city of San Francisco has just voted out their current DA to show that I feel San Francisco is a bit out of focus in exactly what their political direction is at this time. Good luck how they can work on that, because I think their DA and the DA who ran in San Jose both had very progressive agendas and agendas of reimagine. I don't think we have to throw away those concepts. I think there's something incredibly important we're learning at this time that is going to be for our lifetimes. It is building our good future. So the military labeling issue is a part of that. If you could remember 4 or 5 years ago, we could not talk about technology and surveillance and technology openly and in public policy terms. We are learning to do that. We're learning to leave the era of war. And I think we're learning incredibly important lessons from that if we really stick to those good principles and ideals, I think that leads to open democracy, the ideas of positive sustainability, accountability. And those are the futures where we can really question what countries like Russia are doing at this time and ask them to look for better options and alternatives like negotiation. That was, I think, very presented to them that they could have worked towards, and I wish they did. And we're obviously going to go back to that negotiating table. Thanks a lot for this item, and thank you.
You?
All right, bringing it back to the committee. Before I request a motion, Lee, I expect by the next rules meeting that this agenda will be thoroughly vetted and scrubbed and load balanced.
Yes, it will, Vice Mayor. We're going through that now. We'll be able to answer any questions next week that the Rules Committee wants to know in the way of what legally needs to go before the end of the year, and then what was council directed that the Rules Committee has authority to push into August if they so wish.
Right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.
So looking for a motion.
I'll move approval of the agenda.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Tony?
Arenas?
Yes.
Cohen?
Aye.
Davis?
Yes.
Peralez? Peralez? Jones?
Aye.
Sorry, that was an aye.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, on to the consent calendar. Tony, do we have any public speakers?
There are no hands.
Move approval.
Can I get a second, please? All right, it's been moved and seconded. Tony?
Arenas?
Yes.
Cohen?
Aye.
Davis?
Yes.
Peralez?
Yes.
Jones?
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, on to the next item, support the California Plastic Waste Reduction Regulations Ballot Initiative. And we will go to the public first.
Yeah, I want to note that the person who raised their hand to talk about C1, this is your time to raise your hand and talk about C1, the reduced plastic waste reduction. Blair? Okay, we lost Blair. I'm going to go to Quincy.
All right. Hi again. All right. Good afternoon. My name is Quincy Johnston. I'm with the environmental organization Californians Against Waste, and we're calling today to express our support for the resolution to endorse the plastics ballot measure. This ballot measure marks a once-in-a-generation opportunity to truly change the tide on plastic pollution while investing in our environment and economy. The California Recycling and Plastic Pollution Reduction Act places a fee of up to 1 cent per component of plastic packaging and single-use foodware based on the cost of recyclability, shifting costs to plastic manufacturers. The fee is slated to, in part, fund local jurisdictions for investment in recycling and waste management infrastructure, as well as education and outreach programs. Additionally, this fee establishes continued annual investments in infrastructure and programs paid for by manufacturers, ensuring that rates are low for consumers. Concerns of costs being passed on to consumers is based on the wrong assumption that producers would continue with the same production and not opt for the most feasible, recyclable, and environmentally friendly materials under the provisions of the ballot measure, and that is unrealistic. We respectfully urge San Jose City Council to support this ballot measure. Thank you for your ongoing leadership on this issue. Thank you.
Blair?
Hi, Blair Beekman here. If you listen very closely in the past few weeks at my public comment at public meetings, you could possibly hear the sound of whooshing and waves. I've been traveling and visiting Maui in Hawaii the past few weeks, and I had a really good time. It was very relaxing for me. And while I was there, I learned that they have a plastic bag ban, and they're not too keen on plastics, no plastic straws. And it may be a good model for yourselves to look into as a state and how they work their plastic policies that may be of interest. And so I thought I'd mention it at this time. And a nice reminder that Zoom meetings are an interesting process where I can be at a different place and call in and attend a public meeting. Thanks for that.
I think we're done with public speakers.
Yeah, back to the committee. Sorry, I muted myself.
Okay, before we go to my colleagues, Lee or Zane, do you want to weigh in on the process of our considering this and how it fits into our principles and what process it needs to go through?
Sure, I'll defer to Zane.
Yeah, sure. So this ballot initiative is currently an eligible ballot initiative. All ballot initiatives will become qualified on June 30th. This is an opportunity really for San Jose to take some leadership. It's aligned with our legislative program on extended producer responsibility and our environmental and climate smart initiatives. The other pieces here are that if enacted, this measure would prohibit food vendors, including restaurants and grocery stores, from using styrofoam and other plastic foam takeout containers. It would require manufacturers to reduce the maximum extent possible the plastic packaging and single-use products they create. This could require them to offer more reusable containers. As noted, it would create a fee of up to 1% or 1 cent for manufacturers on every plastic item or product with plastic packaging. And this money would be used to build recycling and composting facilities and to pay for restoration projects such as beach cleanups. So revenue from the fee would be distributed to Cal Recycle, California Natural Resources Agency, and local governments, with 50% going to Cal Recycle for implementation and enforcing of the measure, 30% to the California National Resources Agency for state and local grants to address environmental impacts of plastic pollution, and 20% to local governments for recycling and composting programs and plastic pollution mitigation. I'm also joined by Shika Gupta here from Environmental Services if there's specific questions.
Great, thank you. All right, going to my colleagues, Councilmember Cohen, I'm assuming that you have something to say?
Well, Zane pretty much summarized a lot of what I would have said.
You can just say ditto.
So I don't need to take more time. 20% of the money for the 1 cent fee comes back to local governments, which would be helpful in things that we're doing to implement composting and other things. That's valuable to us. We have a styrofoam ban, but the state does not. So this would sort of align the state with what San Jose is doing. It also would require that people get for takeout don't automatically get plasticware as part of their takeout, for example, and you'd have to, people would have to request it, and what you're given would then have to be reusable, recyclable, or compostable. So you wouldn't be able to use plastic utensils as part of takeout. There's a lot of elements that are good. This is important. This is on the ballot because for years the legislature has been having discussions about doing these things and keeps getting stymied by opposition from plastics industry and hasn't been able to come to an agreement. So it's on the ballot. There's a reason to do this now, and that is because the legislature is talking about a bill that would do some of these things now, and therefore remove it from the ballot. If the legislature can actually do this before June 30th, then it would be removed from the ballot in November. So by endorsing this measure, we're signaling that it's important to us, and we hope that the legislature will actually put these actions in legislatively and it won't end up on the ballot. So I think that's the reason to bring it forward and support it ahead of June 30th. I'd like to move approval of this item. I don't know if it has to come to council after this or what the next step would be, but I move that we would endorse this ballot measure.
All right, do I hear a second?
Second.
Okay, and then Lee or Zane, what would be the next steps on this item? If it's
I think
approved.
this item, per the recommendation, gets agendized for next week on the 14th for the full council.
Okay. And just so everyone knows, the reason why I asked the question about the process, because we often have some of these items come before us in rules, and I just want to be consistent in terms of which ones we move forward and which ones we refer back to IGR to do a further analysis and exploration on, and then come back with recommendations. So I just want to try to be consistent. And so we have a motion and a second on the floor. I don't see any other hands raised. So Tony?
Arenas,
Yes.
Cohen,
Aye.
Davis,
Yes.
Peralez,
Yes.
Jones.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, team, we're almost done. I know there were some late nights last night, so I'm feeling it right now. The energy on Zoom. So we're gonna go to open forum, and Tony, do we have any public comments?
I have, okay, one hand went up, 4963.
Yeah, hi, Martha O'Connell. I infrequently say this, but it's applicable to this topic. I wish the government would act more like private enterprise. I have alerted housing to the fact that there is a number 9754480 that is impossible for the residents to navigate. It is a lengthy punch 1, punch 3, and you have to listen to a long recorded voice. And all I suggested was, could you put at the top of the message, punch 1 for an operator? And I'm getting pushback. And folks, we're here to serve the citizens, especially those whose first language is not English. I had a chapter president whose first language is English try it, and she said she about gave up after 5 minutes. So if you could ask housing to please make that number more user-friendly when mobile home park residents are trying to get help, it would go a long way to make their lives a lot easier. And once again, that number, call it yourself and see what I mean, 975-4480. Thank you very much for considering that.
Back to, oh, Brian Darby just put his hand up.
All right.
What Martha McConnell said, and I agree with what she's saying. Please pay attention. I'm a perfect example of when you don't pay total attention. You lose out on
Hey, Brian, you're muffled.
I'm the perfect example of when you don't pay perfect attention, you lose something really important. That's how I lost my, I didn't check my deed correctly. And there was just one thing that was off about it. Everything else fit. And, they had me lined up and I was going to get a new housing. They had me ready to move. And then they had me a piece of paper, told me after that happened, I was viewed like I was a piece of trash. And I'm not holding that to anybody here, but it's very, very damaging. And they are after mobile home parks. They want to convert mobile home parks. Even with all the fine things you put in, they still want to do that. But during that, you have to make it really easy for people to communicate. I wasn't able to do this because I was going through I had a serious back injury where I couldn't basically walk. I lost my sight and I was struggling with some massive pain all the time for 10 years. That would affect anybody. Anyways, thank you for letting me share that. Have a good day.
Give back to the committee.
All right. This meeting is adjourned. Take care, everyone. Bye.